had some decent games this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
A couple of close ones, a couple of nail biters, including the LA Tech and Southern Miss game. I happened to be down in South Carolina with my wife, so I didn't get to watch too much. But one that I did get to watch was the Duke Boston College game. And
how was the trip with your wife, by the way?
Oh, it was great. It was good.
Good
got to see our niece, and eat a lot of seafood. So, a lot of driving, but...
Isn't that the purpose of going?
What's your favorite kind of seafood?
Oh, mahi.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I'm a shellfish guy.
I'm a crab leg guy.
Oh,
okay.
I'm all about crab legs.
I'm sure.
Some crab legs and butter.
Yeah,
all right, continue.
So,
well, you had a good trip.
Very good trip.
Fuck you.
So...
I was working.
18 hours of total driving, 18 and a half hours of total driving. So
fucking bitch up, I guess.
That sucked.
Right.
But I really didn't know what to expect with Boston College coming into this year. I mean, you lose A.J. Dillon, your bell cow back, rather. But the big addition for the head coach is Jeff Hafley out of Ohio State, former defensive coordinator for Ohio State. Been to his coach's clinics. Dude is a very, very brilliant mind in terms of defense, and especially in the secondary. And man, Boston College did not disappoint. 26-6 over Duke. And Duke, they showed pretty well in their first game against Florida State.
Notre Dame.
Oh, yep. Yep, it was Notre Dame. My apologies. But I was really impressed with Boston College. Lou, what was the game? I know you watched the Cincy game.
Yeah, so I watched 2 games that I kind of paid attention to, 3 games. You know, the main one obviously being Cincinnati, but then I also jumped in, watched a little bit of the Appalachian State and Marshall, and then a little bit of the Georgia Tech and UCF. And, you know, first and foremost, I watched that Cincinnati game, and, you know, fellas, I'm really excited about our offense. You know, I think we have a lot of awesome weapons all around us.
How did Ritter look, by the way?
What's that?
How did Ritter look?
Ritter looked good. Ritter looked solid. The only thing that kind of drove me nuts a little bit is that, you know, our offensive line did well. They still had a little bit of a push here and there, but there were some moments where I felt like we were kind of stagnant as far as a run game. I mean, we did well because you had Jared Dokes, who was doing great. All of our running backs got in during that game, by the way, and they all looked stellar.
Okay.
But what was hesitant for me, why I hesitate so much, is because we won that game, you know, like 55-20, something like that, against Austin Peay. And the one thing that I was really looking forward to was looking for a complete shutout from our defense because it's all seniors, right?
Yeah.
And so that was something that I was really expecting. Now I get it, you know, we start running up the score, get some younger guys in there, help build that depth on your team a little bit so that other guys develop. And I know Fickle and, you know, his entire staff are all about making sure they develop these younger guys so that they can long last and be more talented once they reach up into these further levels because, you know, Fickle signed that contract to extend it on to 2026, so he's going to be there for a while. And I think they won that game. They won that game the way they should have. I think they could have won it better because, for my opinion, you know, everyone keeps talking about, you know, the stigma around them and everything that they're capable of doing, and I think that against teams like this, against Austin Peay, who, by the way, was only playing that one game, and now they're out for the rest of the season. They're like, yeah, we just want to play. For them, it was practically like a scrimmage.
Really?
For them, it was like, yeah, we're going to play one game, compete a little bit, then after that, we're just going to focus on the off season. That's literally what they're doing.
That was their third game, I thought.
I don't know if it was their third.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was Austin Peay's third game because they played, I think,
all I knew is that
Arkansas?
After that game, is from what I heard from the announcements and everything that was going on during that game, it sounds like they're not playing any more football.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they played. You're right. That was their last game, but they played Central Arkansas and Pitt, and they've lost all 3 games.
Okay, so, and for me, it was just kind of like frustrating that we didn't completely stomp them because I know that for us to be able to play teams like that, if we really want to make a statement and do what everyone's expecting us to do, we can't just win that. We can't let them get 20 points.
Okay.
You can't allow those guys to get 20 points on you. Even if you're trying to develop your younger guys and things like that, I feel like we got to stomp the shit out of those dudes. Well, excuse my language, but...
I feel like, you know, with those games, obviously this is Cincinnati's first or second game?
It was their first.
First game. All right, so you have first game jitters coming. You're dealing with the COVID, unprecedented times, and you're playing an opponent that isn't necessarily going to challenge your guys. So naturally there's going to be some mental letdown, and you aren't going to be the focus isn't going to be there.
Right.
So we kind of expect those things, but obviously 55-20, that's still a damn good result.
Yeah, it was still solid.
Just not the execution you look for.
Yeah, and especially from the defensive side, I know and like you said, like starting out first game jitters, there's a little bit of rust. First time coming into a stadium like that, maybe not as much juice because you realize there's not that hardly any fans at these games now compared to what it would normally look like on a first time home game. But regardless. We won it. We did well. So I was happy to see the result. I know that we're going to build off of it. I hope we continue to get better. But what makes me nervous is because of how stagnant and how slow that game was moving at times, and how sometimes our defense would still let up some of these things against Austin Peay. And I'm watching UCF's offense. And, dude, those guys are fast. Well, like, they can run up to the line. They'll snap the ball with 35 seconds left on the play clock. Like, they do not care. They're going to roll over you, and they're just going to keep moving fast. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, we better be ready for that. Now, they're not in our regular season schedule. I take that back. I think they are now. There was a lot of games that were kind of being held back a little bit.
Yep.
I think they might be on the schedule now.
Second to last game of the regular
November
season.
22nd.
So, yeah.
November 22nd.
So we got Memphis, which is already going to be an opponent. But with UCF, I'm really, really hoping that we stay solid and we're able to move as fast as they're going to move defensively, because that's the one thing that's really worrying me. I had a lot of high expectations. I get it, first game, whatever. So I let that go. It's not a big deal. But then watching that UCF Georgia Tech game, whew.
UCF surprised me. Georgia Tech, I was expecting to play really, really clean, but UCF surprised me. They were extremely clean. They were polished. It looked like there was no hiccups. Looked like COVID wasn't even a thing for them. I mean, well, I can't say that. They came out really strong, but their game went like a coach's dream.
Yeah.
You look at the box score. They come out, and in the first quarter, it's 7-7.
Yeah.
And coaches always talk about finishing, right? Go in with momentum into the halftime and close the game out in the fourth quarter. Right. And that's exactly what UCF did. I mean, they put up 7 in the first quarter, then turn around, put up 21 in the second to close out the first half. Come out in the third quarter, they don't put up any points, but they hold Georgia Tech to a goose egg also, and then they close out in the fourth quarter with another 21. You'd like to see more execution and coming out of the gate in the first and third quarters, but closing out, and Gabriel was on fire. That dude was lighting it up. I think he had 4 touchdowns, 417 yards. He had a hell of a game.
And here's the thing that's really, I think what's really fueling their flame too is that, they've been pretty solid. A few years back, they were walking around saying that they were national champions because they wouldn't get a bid, and even though they were undefeated, and then now. Last year, since he beat them by, I think it was 24-7 last year. And then, we went on to lose against Memphis 2 times in a row.
Yes.
And I think what's really fueling their fire right now is they're probably sitting there pissed off that the fact that people are now sitting here talking about Cincinnati possibly having an opportunity. Everyone's been talking about, I was listening to Kirk Herbstreit and them talk this morning about how they think, Cincinnati and UCF and all these teams have an opportunity to actually really exploit, their abilities on live television in front of a lot of people and give themselves an opportunity. But they have to be doing things like, what Boise State used to do. Boise State, when they first started getting really good, everyone didn't really pay attention to them. And then they came out and beat some top-tier teams on national television on the stage. And then that's when it was like, holy shit, who's Boise State? And then they got their opportunity. And I think that's what's going to have to happen here for any team in our American Conference. It was nice to see that we got some love and some respect, but I think Cincinnati's going to have to keep building. I don't think they're nowhere close to being done yet. I'm sure they're all aware of that, but also watching UCF, I'm sure UCF is 100% ready to fucking fight for this title too. So I'm thinking that it's going to be a battle to the bitter end. I'm excited to see it, but I'll admit it, fellas, after watching UCF's offense and watching our defense against Austin Peay with a little bit of the rust in the first game, I was nervous because our offense did stellar. We had a little bit of hiccups here and there, nothing too bad, but I'm watching UCF's offense, and it's like, our offense better not have any hiccups against UCF, or our defense not going to be able to keep up with that offense. They're not going to have time to breathe.
Well, you touched on another game that really caught your interest this past week, and that was that Appalachian State Marshall game, right?
Yeah.
And that was a hell of a game. And coming off of that week 1 performance that Marshall had, I was really excited to see what their freshman quarterback would do. And I'm blanking on his name right now, but Grant Wells, and he did not have a good game. He was 11 of 25, right? He had 163 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an interception. And yet they still win 17-7.
Yeah.
Appalachian State had a missed field goal, but Marshall's running game dominated, and what I think ultimately won them the game, obviously, was their defense. And one play in particular, I think, sealed that game and really put the momentum in Marshall's favor was Appalachian State. Their quarterback, Zach Thomas, had their tight end on what should have been a sure touchdown, and a pure effort play by Marshall's, I believe, safety or backside cornerback, catches him, left arm hooks the shoulder pad, 1 punch, 2 punch to the ball, that thing pops out, Marshall recovers it in the end zone for a touchback, and that was the momentum swing that I think really sealed the game for Marshall. That was a really impressive showing for not just the running game, but the defense also. But I'd like to hopefully see them continue to progress and clean up the passing game.
Yeah. No, I agree. I liked watching how that game first kicked off, because in those first 2 quarters, I liked the way that Marshall was really just pounding the rock. And they were doing a good job doing it. The offensive line was getting a lot of push. And then, Appalachian State was moving around. They were quick. They were setting some things up. And I liked the play calling from Appalachian State's side of the ball when they were coming out at the beginning of that game. But yeah, like you said, that turnover was massive. That was a huge momentum swing.
And, they also had another key turnover where App State was driving, and you had the cornerback that committed 2 pass interferences on that drive, comes away with an interception along the sideline. That was another big swing too. Now, Darby, I know you were working on Saturday, so you didn't get catch a lot of the games, but I know you did get to watch one of them. All right,
we all know what I watched.
Let me hear what was your assessment. I was really surprised with how your boys performed. I wasn't expecting them to come out that on top of it.
So before I get into Miami Louisville, I do want to touch on a game we were just talking about earlier, because I did get to see the final 10 minutes of was the UCF Georgia Tech game, and strictly because.
You gotta jump in, man.
Well, no. I wanted to wait because this is perfect for getting ready to talk about Miami. But I wanted to talk on Gabriel, who obviously he had a fantastic game, but coming out and saying that they are the Kings of Florida, pretty much in a sense, saying they are
really?
the top team in Florida. And I just want to say to UCF, fucking schedule us. Schedule any of us. I think Florida State, and Miami have been begging for you guys to schedule us for years. I know we're a good, we're the cream of the crop, and we're hard to get in, get in time with the office. But I'm sure we can work you in, get into one of our conferences, play against us yearly, so we can actually see instead of doing these little fake paper crowns that you guys like to do.
Yeah.
But moving on, so I was thoroughly impressed with how my boys played. I know I even said last week that we beat them by 20. We should have beat them by 20 if it wasn't for dumpster points at the end of the game. But just overall, I know the score 47-34. It doesn't sound like as dominant, but that performance felt dominant from the get-go.
Yeah.
I at no point watching that game did I feel, even though Louisville came, I think they came within 7 at one point, outside of the first quarter, because I know they took a 3-0 lead on us and then we ran away with it. But I know they came within, I believe, 7 points of us, and even then, I just didn't feel worried. I didn't feel that any kind of pressure. But I just got, Rhett Lashley, man.
His play calling was on point.
The 275 yarders were pure design.
Yeah, and that was our big concern coming out of last week, right? Obviously Derrick King performed, but we were concerned with some of the production, and we attributed it to play calling being conservative and kind of keeping things in the back pocket.
I wouldn't say concerned. I wasn't concerned about like offensive production. I said it last week that I felt that it was very vanilla on purpose, and that he didn't want to show much. But
fucking ads.
God damn it.
I was like, wait a minute, what is that? I hear
Let
that.
me mute all these sites. So
I was
we
like,
don't
did you
get
add a
that
new
again.
button?
You get it. But so I wasn't worried there. I was curious. The only thing I was concerned about was pass protection, which turned out to be almost phenomenal.
Yeah.
We only gave up, I think it was one sack. I don't think we gave up more than one sack that game against Louisville.
Man, that offensive,
I know you've got the stats
offensive line
right
did.
there.
Yeah, so
They turned it up
well.
exponentially.
Well, I think only one sack was attributed. I don't even know if there was a sack attributed to the offensive line, because they did attribute him to Derrick King holding the ball too.
It was one sack, and it was a coverage sack at that.
So I felt, I couldn't believe it. I mean, because I'm going to highlight some players. You know, Brevin Jordan, who I've been preaching since before the season started, best tight end in America, and finally he got to showcase it on live TV with a real offensive coordinator. That hurdle.
That hurdle
that was insane.
If he would have kept his foot in bounds and scored the touchdown on that play. But that was phenomenal.
That was so impressive.
And then you got, Cam Harris, again, with his second straight game of 134 yards. And that big 75-yard run that he had, where I didn't even know this dude had that speed.
Oh, he
that
broke
top
away.
End speed. Holy shit!
He's a quote unquote power back.
He is he's a power back. We've watched him for a year now, and seen him last year when he got touches.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell he's a power back, but he had a little more speed than DJ Dallas. Derrick King, of course. I mean, I don't really need to hit on that.
Well,
I think the big thing to me was I was expecting him to kind of run all over this team, and for him to only run the ball like 3 times.
And he lost his streak.
Yeah, he did lose his streak, which to me shows that he never
didn't care about
he
it.
Didn't care because he never put the effort into it. He never did that. He never tried. Well, typically when people know they have these records and they want to keep them, they try too hard to try to make that run. Yeah. He never did.
No.
He stayed in the pocket, or he rolled out and he made passes and threw for 330 yards.
Even late
touchdowns.
in the game when you had the lead, he had an opportunity where it was wide open and he ended up throwing for a touchdown on that play.
And Bubba Bolden.
Those are the two guys Bolden. I wanted to talk about.
Bubba Bolden.
So I've been searching the internet here this morning, just in preparation for this, and Bubba Bolden's starting to get a little bit of a fan club, rightly so. But 2 people I was really, really impressed with, and I think are your players of the game, were Bubba Bolden and Phillips. Those 2 boys, Jalen Phillips and Bubba Bolden had a game. They played phenomenally.
Well, dude, even Al Blades was fantastic.
Blades was phenomenal. But Cunningham, he did not look comfortable at all. He didn't look comfortable in the pocket. When he scrambled out of the pocket, you had Phillips right there. You had Bubba coming downhill. I mean, their pursuit in order to contain a mobile quarterback, it was phenomenal. They did a great job with that.
Which was interesting to see because that's always been Manny Diaz's kryptonite since he's been with us, is mobile quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as Miami fans, we were fully prepared for him to gash us. And he did have a couple big runs, but for the most part, he didn't. The one person that gashed us was Hawkins. And I mean, which he is an NFL back.
Yeah, but that was mainly
fantastic back.
He had some good plays. I mean, the one cutback play, your backside pursuit was a little bit too shallow, and that's the only thing that happened there. But he wasn't getting those chunk plays.
I thought he was.
He was getting.
He was getting a lot of 10-yard runs.
Yeah, but not as where it was consistent. He would get them like one drive and then like maybe 2 drives later, but it wasn't to where it was a consistently getting chunked consecutively on a drive, and to where it's like that's the sole reason you're giving up points.
I like
on
that phrase. Get chunked. I'm gonna start running with that.
Well, I think we need to come up with a fucking phrase for Jose Borregales, our Lord and Savior of a kicker that we have now.
That's the boom.
Tying a Miami record at 57 yards.
You know what was funny too is like, dude, when he how long was that? How long
57 yards.
And did you see the way the ball hit the net?
Dude, I don't think
he could have kicked that for another 10 yards.
I like what Kirk said. He said that was good for 65.
And
honestly,
I don't think he had great contact on it either. Because if you look at the rotation of the ball,
Well, he kicks a line drive ball.
Okay, so he does knuckleballs?
He kicks a line drive ball. He does not kick your a typical.
He kicks the win.
Yeah.
I mean,
that boy, he's got a Category 5 leg. That's what
nice
he's fucking
He's
got.
going to the league if he doesn't get hurt.
But there were a lot of negatives with this game. Penalties were a big thing.
Yeah.
Even though I thought we were a little picked on with penalties. But we'll get into that. I won't get into that. But a lot of penalties did keep Louisville's drives alive, which they scored off of, and then killed a lot of our drives. We left a lot of points on the field this game. We could have really rolled this team.
Yeah.
Really rolled this team if we would have kept our shit together. And then I felt our rush defense did not hold up. JV and Hawkins did gash us quite a bit. I mean, look, you know, he had 164 yards,
averaging 6 yards. Okay.
So to me, he gashed us a shit ton. I expected our pass coverage to give up a lot of yardage because we were going to play back and not give up the deep ball and just let them have everything underneath and get the tackles, which it showed in the game, and it shows on the stats.
Well, my one concern coming out of this game, and he somewhat redeemed himself at the end of the game, is still your wide receiver group, especially Pope.
Yeah.
Pope, I mean, how many drops did he have?
He had 3 drops. So I believe
they were big drops. I mean, big yardage gains, open. I mean,
well, I'm not gonna lie. He dropped one that was at the corner of the end zone, the front corner of the end zone that Derrick King threw. It was a perfect back shoulder.
Yes,
and it hit him right in the freaking hands.
Yeah,
but that's not the type. I hate to say, it's not the type of receiver he is. He is in your typical speed, elusive wide receiver, but he's got to catch these passes. And Mike Harley too. Okay, Mike Harley dropped a touchdown pass that we had to rely on a field goal for after.
I think it's time that you guys have had a couple big time recruits that Manny has been able to snag, and I think it's time we start seeing some of those young guys. I was starting to see some
Xavier Restrepo, some freaking Keyshawn Smith, who was these are guys that we were very high on coming into camp, and everybody was expecting to have these bigger roles coming in. And to me, we're seeing the same old from our receiving core. I mean, I wanted to give a shout out to Mark Pope because he did improve, but those drops, man, like you gotta up that. That's definitely the best game I've seen him have since he's been in the Miami uniform. But he was a borderline 5-star. A lot of people consider him a 5-star receiver. He's got to start showing it. Yeah. And then to me, like going back on the defense, the defensive play calling to me is still too freaking conservative. I don't like when I think of our defense. I think of our blitzing linebackers and getting in there. I felt like the play calling was way too conservative. I can understand it to a degree because you're dealing with this explosive offense. You're not trying to get gashed.
Yeah,
but
you also don't want to show all your playbook from a defensive standpoint.
Well, but this is the game where you want to start stepping up a little bit because this is a Louisville team that was they stepped up in a sense that they didn't allow the big ball. Okay, to me, I still don't like the amount of yards that we gave up. I don't like the conservative linebacking, like keeping the linebackers back. That's what we're known for.
Yeah, but my thing is even if you have an identity like that, sometimes you have to sacrifice an identity to win with a game plan. And I think that's what Manny did was he had his game plan that he knew would be enough to win, and I think he stuck to it. And I think at times that's what differentiates some average coaching to good coaching is the ability to step away from an identity in order to game plan and out coach the opponent.
I just don't agree with it. I don't agree with the because this is 2 weeks in a row to me. Yeah. So I don't like it that I've seen it 2 weeks in a row. To me, because it's not Manny Diaz calling the defense, it's Blake Baker calling the defense.
Okay.
Which is his guy, his buddy. And Blake, I'm not on a lot of Miami fans have been on it since last year to fire his ass and get him out because they don't like it. But you're gonna have to deal with it because I think Manny Diaz is just that good of a defensive coordinator that you're gonna tell a difference.
Yeah.
But he was aggressive last year, and I'm not seeing the aggressiveness. Hopefully, I see it this week against Florida State. But outside of that, I felt like this game was a very good game for us. I thought it was a perfect chance for us to really show off in front of the national media, and it bumped us up to 12th in the country. Of course, this is without the Big Ten being in.
Yeah.
But
well, speaking of that,